The Caitlin Johnston account, a lot of good content, accurately describes the problem. For some reason in modern society, the least competent, the most inept, the most pathological people rise to rule it. And people who are actually best suited to rule a human society don't, and they don't have those skills. Why is this? And it's the cause of all suffering. Correct on the head. And I'm going to explain where this comes from. The human brain is still evolved for a tribe. I don't care if you're from Sweden, I don't care if you're from Africa and you have ancestors or your family lives in a tribe. My grandmother lived in a tribe. My grandmother lived in a tribe. She lived in a Berber tribe. They had tattoos all over their faces. I don't care what you are. If you're a Homo sapiens, your brain is evolved for a tribe. And this is proven. They have done lots of psychological tests. The average human can only know 200 people. The average human, the reason we're prone to form these love-hate reactions with our leaders is that is adaptive for a tribe. Odds are the leader of your tribe is the wisest, oldest member. He's a genetic relative, not like a sister or brother, but he's you and you are him. And he tells you myths and he would not lie to you. There's a heavy penalty for exploitation in a tribe because everybody knows what everybody's doing for real. I'm not talking surveillance state AI data where they're lying about people or making guesses. They literally know what you're doing because there's only like 100 or 200 of you. Just like you know what your kids are doing. You go in there, draw, and open it. And the tribe knows everyone's doing. And there's very little role for exploiters to rise in a tribe. We have the natural tribal structure is the best defense against people like Elon Musk gaining power. They will all kick his ass out and beat his ass. So because the natural human social structure we evolved to understand, a tribe, there's very little role for exploiters to do well. We don't have very good defenses against exploiters rising to the top, and we instead tend to just have faith. We have a very symbolic, spiritualistic way of thinking, and our leaders in a human group bond with the tribe by weaving magical stories and folk tales. Every human group does this. The capacity for religion. Organized religion is an agricultural version of every tribe's folk myths, right? Every tribe, the leader will make up folk myths to bond, explain the world, and it never is exploitative. We have no evolved capacity to fight an exploiter. I want you to understand that. And so the bigger a human group gets, the more opportunity there is for exploitative personalities to do well and actually survive, if not thrive. And when we invented mass agriculture, this was the pivot for the most antisocial people who call themselves God and are entirely comfortable with depriving the bottom, turning them into slaves to do their bidding being created, the Illuminati triangle. This was created the moment we pivoted to mass agriculture and an entirely novel social arrangement for Homo sapiens, where the most pathological, those who could use our spiritual bonding, whereas dogs bristle, we tell stories and sing songs. Use that to glow themselves up as God and make it normal. You're a slave. You're above the slave. You're next to me, and I'm God. The feudal system, the emperor, the king, the czar, whatever, the CEO today, the Illuminati CEO. That pivot to mass agriculture allowed for huge population growth, which set the stage for exploitative personalities who use human mental machinery against them for their own ends to win. And when this happened, this was the beginning of social inequality, the concept of it within the group, right? In hunter-gatherer sites, they're pretty egalitarian. I mean, there are people with status and more, but there's nobody assigned to a role of like the other, the slave. But in this, every single time, the slaves, the serfs, the peasants, the nobility, the king, God, God, God. And they not only did they do this by exploitive personalities rising to the top, it basically exploiting the human tribe brain having no real machinery to fend itself against a parasite within its midst, but the effective agriculture itself. Um, Contrary to like the government the leaders of the current hive will tell you grains are the most nutritious food, grains fuel the world. And it's like, it's true, but honestly, the inequities of developments created by agriculture helped these parasites become the king who is Wotan. You look at the skeletons, Homo sapiens who live in tribes are way better developed. They're taller, their cranium is bigger. Then you see the shift to agriculture, and suddenly there's all these people who are at the bottom, relegated to a slave like role, who are stunted with a small brain, a small cranium. And so there's even that element. The nature of agriculture, the huge population boom, allowed for them to start controlling resources where you're designated little and I'm designated a lot. And by that cycle of deprivation of resources, food, so these people are eating the worst grain and they're like 5 feet tall with a flat brain. They have no ability to fight back against the guy saying he's the king. They're like, your job is to push this boulder to make this statue. That's your job. And here's your 5 foot ass with broken teeth. They're falling out, severe nutrient deficiencies because you're not living in a tribe eating high quality meat anymore. What are you going to do? You're going to join the other guy like you and the other 8 million of you and just push the boulder. And that's how human society propelled. By a tiny few who were the most psychopathic, able to conjure this crazy delusion they're God, get more resources until they're developed a little better, and control the resources. The bottom stays in a state of deprivation, chronically growth stunted, and told from birth, your role is to be my slave because I'm God. And when you look at modern society, is it any different? We don't live in feudal systems anymore. I'm like, we have a tiny few psychopaths who hoard all the resources. They deliberately give very little to the bottom and tell them at birth their job is to serve the structure in them. This deprivation of resources they create, very similar to the agricultural societies that created kings, czars, and emperors, makes even less ability to analyze anything or fight back and poor development. And these few elites who are psychopaths order the masses around into formation for their ends. Like, but no, we're not a feudal system anymore. We have democracy and free election. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, as for the problem why every human society will always result in the most psychopathic and least equipped people to run it, is because a hive structure is as natural to us as a colony is to a cat. I'm going to give you an analogy right now. Humans began living in hives when we developed mass agriculture. This allowed for psychopaths to start calling themselves God and to see some people as slaves or just above slaves, just a little grain, and they're short and broken and mangled, and their only job is to push the boulder in the direction the leader says to push the boulder until they make a big statue of him, and then they make something like an empire with specialized roles, with the most deprived being relegated to the grunt work and no compensation, known as a slave, and the more privileged, they take on specialized roles to help propel the side. But all of it's directed by the delusional leaders who are literally special. And we started doing that the same time the African wildcat started realizing, if I live near these monkeys, I can eat the rodents that are near their grain. So the African wildcat was like, these monkeys, they got lots of rats near them and the mice. I'm gonna just start hanging out near them. And they started self-domesticating 10,000 years ago, the same time we started living like bees, ruled by a psychopath who was calling himself God and creating deliberate mass inequality. And our tribal brains are just rocked and shocked. Leveraging our group's spiritual imagination myths to create rigid classes in their favor. Whereas for millennia before that, it was to make the group harmonious and egalitarian. I'm the leader because I'm the oldest guy. I was the best at getting fruit and killing animals. That's why I don't think I'm God, but I'm in my station from wisdom, and we're all together. The brain evolved for that. Now it's like, God commands you to die at the rock building my statue. It's like fucking sloped forehead from eating green and no meat. dying under the statue. Millions of disposable people, just have some more, have 10 kids. Humans never had that many kids. We started having like 40 kids when agriculture, and it's just like a steady army of malnourished slaves who can't fight back and only take orders. To this delusional psychopath at the top, using our tribal spiritual brains against us. God orders you to serve me because I'm God. It's like broken teeth from no B12, no zinc, no protein, just like pushing the rock and then you fall down, the other ones push it over you. That's how we got to here, man. And that's what's going on right now. Don't let them fool you. The Illuminati are the new psychopathic leaders. Anyway, like I said, I was making an analogy. So cats, domestic cats started doing the same thing. 10,000 years ago, we began living as a hive, really abnormal to our minds and being used against us. Divine inequality, divine classes to serve a psycho saying he's God. And they did the same thing. They started shifting how they live because they saw an opportunity. There's lots of mice here near their grain silos and shit. And they began living more social. The ones who were more friendly to people did better naturally, because if you're a human, you see a little furry cat in your food. The one who's like and is pretty friendly to you is going to be probably less killed than the one who's like hissing at you and just purely hostile. So, they began the process of self domestication, which is basically to eat our mice. They began being friendly to us. So we would tolerate it. And we would think to ourselves, well, they're killing the mice. These little furry dudes are cool. And with that process, they began living in what's called colonies. So their socialization to humans, their increased capacity for socialization to humans was also spreading to other cats. And whereas in the wild, the African wildcat is alone. He's this little predator that got long legs, narrow body. We see this with domestication. They become boxy, square, stunted legs. They retain the juvenile traits of the species, which evidence suggests the biological pathways for adulthood become stunted in domestic animals. So to maintain that hyper friendliness that's against their interests, but is being selected for by these unnatural pressures created by humans, you end up selecting for animals that are more juvenile for life because the developed pathways into an adult of the species are being disrupted through evolutionary selection until you create a domestic animal that is basically a forever baby. So when you look at a domestic cat or a domestic dog or even domestic pigs, you're looking at a creature that human intervention in their evolution has resulted in genes that result in a permanent state of being a kitten or a puppy, a wolf pup or a kitten being in that animal for life, right? What I'm saying is when that process happened, the self-domestication of cats to get at our mice, they had to be friendly to us. And to be friendly to us, this created a selection pressure where traits for domestication and retaining a juvenile state of more colony living, just like a group of kittens live together, a group of domestic cats live together. And this is completely at odds with the African wildcat, where they start out kittens, and then once they reach reproductive maturity, they're like, see you suckers, and they're alone. They mark their territory and try to keep all other cats away unless it's breeding time. That's how they hunt. They're not pack hunters. They're solitary small game hunters that are low to the ground with slit eyes. Every small game predator has big ears, slit eyes. You see this in the canids and the felids. Our cats are small. It'd be like if foxes became our pets, they would have the same traits: big ears, slit eyes, small game. Even though they're canines, the reason dogs look the way they do with their round pupils is they're just really mutated wolves. So you look in a dog's eyes, even an 8-pound poodle like she has wolf eyes, round pupils for hunting above ground. Every small game predator to the ground, snakes, cats, foxes, they have slit eyes, which helps them focus light to see small movement on the ground. Anyway, domestication of cats resulted in colony living more like a kitten. Let's just summarize like that. It is 10,000 years later, just like it is for us. And these motherfuckers still have no immune system to handle colony living. None. So you look at humans and dogs, we have a millennia of social living behind us. Before we were Homo sapiens, we were some primordial social ape. Before dogs were dogs, they were wolves. And before they were wolves, mother pack hunter. This is not 10,000 years they've been living like this. And their immune system is like, what is wrong with you? I'm an African wildcat. Why are you standing near this motherfucker? Even if their brain is like, meow, meow, baby kitten. This is my kitten colony. We're kittens with a mommy. And even if the cat's an adult, they're baby for life. And they act as if they were literal kittens. And so they live with each other and they're friendly to us. But their immune system ain't agree. So, unlike us and wolves and dogs, animals with a long history of social better evolved machinery to handle and survive communicable illness that you can get just by standing near somebody, they don't got that. So, like, they very easily get sick. Um, and not only that, but their immune system has no fail safes to stop viral evolution. So, what I mean is, like, if a cat gets a coronavirus, because their body has no competency for social viruses, this thing will just mutate weirdly and rapidly in the cat into a form that's super lethal and kill the whole colony. It's called FIP. Um, what I'm trying to say is 10,000 years is the blink of an eye of evolution. And you could be doing something. So some parts of you may be evolved for it, but other parts not. And that is basically what humans are going through with hive living. Some parts of us are starting to evolve to it, but some parts are not. And this is why it is not lockstep symbiosis the way traits we have for conditions we've faced millennia are. This is why domestic cats are still bumbling idiots with social viruses, even though some parts of them are evolved for it and they have domesticated traits to behave like a forever kitten that want to live in a group. And what I'm saying is, this is just like humans living in a hive for 10,000 years, and we have no evolved capacity for it. So we'll be doomed to these cycles of not a queen bee rising to the top like in a bee colony, a beehive, where this is completely symbiotic. The queen knows I serve the workers like the worker serves me. The queen will never turn around and destroy her hive. She's not there because she thinks she's better than other bees. It is just what they do. They're a hive, beehive. So the queen at the top always knows. I mean, they're insects, they don't think, but all her behavior is the workers are me and I am the workers. They act as a lockstep unit. And the only time a beehive changes is when it gets too big because it's successful. And then a few workers leave and they find somewhere else and start building new comb and feeding the new queen. And then she starts making more workers. And that's just what happens, bro. You will never have a case of you'll never have a beehive where the queen starts getting so delusional and so out of touch with the hive because she was always only there from delusion and tribe thinking myths apply to a pathological member of the hive that she begins destroying the hive, that she begins thinking, I don't need these people, that she begins sabotaging it and hunting the workers. That doesn't happen, but it happens every single time to a successful human hive. There's one of two routes for a human hive. It's absorbed by another up and coming hive. So another human group of slaves and delusional god kings comes and eats it and absorbs it, or it entropies. And this is because we're not evolved to sustain this. So what happens in an entropic human hive is the leaders become so degenerate, so grandiose, so out of touch from success of the prior hive and their control of slaves, they begin killing the slaves. They begin, instead of competing or making wise decisions to use the slaves in a way that'll grow the hive more, they begin making vain entropic decisions like, I'm going to send you to Stalingrad while fighting the Western Front because they're so out of touch. so delusional by how they got to where they are. Grandiosity, context, wise decisions controlling and mind controlling your slaves. They've been making foolish decisions based in their own pathological personalities. And then this causes the hive to entropy and get crushed by other hives. So that's the two ways for a human hive. One is the leaders aren't making foolish decisions, but just a stronger hive shows up and crushes them. Or the hive is successful, it's growing, but the leaders get so out of touch, so delusional, so grandiose that they make stupid decisions. Guess where we are with this timeline? We're at the grandiose delusional leaders destroying their hive time. These people think they don't need humans. These people think they exist without us. These people have an army of nobles below them telling them this, and they are making choices now to kill the workers that created them. And this hive will fall. It won't be the first time, and it won't be the last time. And here's the real issue. We're not evolved for hives. We're evolved for tribes. And the people who rise to the top of a human hive are the least competent, the least pro-social, but what they're good at is leveraging a tribal brain against it to create rigid myths using our thinking to serve them. And if the hive leader is a good one, for a while the hive will be successful because he'll make decisions ordering the bottom in a way that the whole hive can kind of benefit from, even if some are slaves, some are nobles, and some are the king. For a while he'll be making good decisions, but always the hive will become entropic. It is the only way because it is not a natural structure to us, and it is only created through delusion, leveraging a tribal brain. It is not, what I'm trying to say is we're not like bees, where it's like, I'm the queen bee because you're the worker. We're together in this, and it can never be any other way. The leader of a human hive is there through delusion and grandiosity and resource control and manipulation. That can't be sustained. And there's two routes. A competing hive devours it, who's just more competent, or a successful hive is subjected to the excesses of success, and the leaders start making shitty decisions, start picking off their own people, start living as if they don't need the hive, start making really foolish decisions from their own grandiosity and isolation from the bottom, and then the hive entropies and crashes, and another hive rises. And this is exactly why it is known in history humans go through this cycle of like the biggest civilizations will always fall. That's the reason why. It's because we're not evolved for hives, and the leaders of the hive are there through deception, manipulation, lies, and not a natural "I'm the queen bee," and they can't keep it up. It will always end in entropy, making foolish decisions from their own grandiose traits that got them to the top of the hive, now destroying it. And that's where America is now. We were in the apex part where the leaders were using lies and manipulation to get the slaves and the resource unequal to move the society forward. And now the aggregation of all those people is leading them to destroy the hive. And they believe this, that they're going to win, but they will not. They're going to fail because that's all that ever happens when this happens. Like once the leaders start the level of delusion and opulence gets to this level, they always destroy the civilization, just fall. At this pivot with people like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, the equivalent to like the degenerates of a decaying society in power, they really think they're going to kill us all off and like make some utopia with their robots. They're just going to fall, as has happened all throughout history. And humans are doomed to these cycles in the same way cats are until they evolve, fully evolve for a hive, until cats fully evolve for communicable living. Maybe in 100,000 years or 500,000 years, if this shit's still around, we'll be like bees. And the person at the top is evolved for a massive human structure. And we're all symbiotic with this without allusion to lies or capitalizing on manipulating tribal instincts. But that day is not today, nor is it for them. So we're in the process of evolution toward a hive structure. And we're way not there yet. So we're just doomed to these cycles of failing until the people who are best fit for a hive become the new humans. And they just maintain that until some other shit happens. So why is this happening? Agriculture.